How's it going, everybody? Kengashi is back, but today it's going to be a little different. We're not going to be doing a rebuild or a MyCareer gameplay. We're going to be talking about some real NBA basketball. And as you know, the NBA season just resumed in Orlando in the bubble, and they said that the awards are just going to be all based off of the regular season that already ended, and the 8 regular season games that they're going to be playing is just for seeding, not going to go towards the awards for consideration. So it's award season, everybody. So today I think we're going to start with the All NBA teams. Now we'll get the first few out of the way. I'm going to try and give people stats along with my reasoning for why they're here, but some of them we know who they are. I don't need to go deep into it, and other ones I might justify a little bit because there are some people that are left off this list. So with the first team, obviously LeBron, I have him as the point guard on this team. You know, it's LeBron. We're going to get more into him later. And then we have Harden. Harden's averaging almost 35 points a game, leading scorer. He's got to be on this list, really, just because of what he brings every night. Giannis, he's another one. He's a no-brainer. He has to be on this list, and we'll get more into him later. So at the power forward, we're going to be going Anthony Davis. The Lakers have been bringing it all season, and he is their best defender by far, and he really makes that defense go. So he'll be the power forward. And center, it's kind of hard with centers just because there is a gap between the top 4 and the centers, even though I love this next guy. I love him, but there is a gap, but we have to put a center in. So it's going to be Jokic. I think he brings a lot to the table with his passing, his offense, and, you know, his defense isn't the best, but I think he gives you so much on the offensive end of the floor because he's not just a scorer, but he's a great passer that he can totally just lead a team in that way. So I have him on this list because he's averaging on the year, he's going 20, 10, and 7 assists, which is pretty great. So on second team, we'll start with our shooting guard first. Doncic, he has to be on this list. He's averaging, he has a 27 PER, which is 4th among PER, and then the people above him are like Giannis and Anthony Davis. So he's just outstanding in his only second year. And the Mavs are actually the best offense of the league rating wise, and it is because of how he's able to create for others and score in isolation off those step back threes. And at our point guard position, we have Damian Lillard. Okay, in the past, I have been critical of Damian Lillard, but you know, I think a lot of people have because there were so many good point guards, and he was just right on the cusp, just with the All-Stars. I remember when he got his first All-Star selection after being snubbed a few times, but now he's just, you can't deny how great he is because he just does so much scoring-wise and draws so much attention. He's almost like Steph Curry, where you need to pay attention to him as soon as he crosses half court because he can pull up from anywhere. And he was able to keep the Trailblazers relevant while they had Collins, Nurkic. I think McCollum was out for a little bit, and then they got Carmelo later in the season. But we didn't know what he was going to bring. He's turning out to be a really good asset to this team, and we'll get into Carmelo and Anthony in another video. But at our 4 position, we have Jimmy Butler, 4C in the East, with a lot of mix of new players, young players, old players. But he is definitely the best player on that team, and he's the leader of that team, bringing his mentality to that Miami Heat culture. So I think he has to be on this list because of how well the team's doing. And we'll go center now. Embiid. It's up in the air between Nikola and Joel, but I just prefer Jokic. I think at this point with Jokic and Embiid, it is just a preference kind of thing. And I love defenders, especially big man defenders. But Nikola is the main distributor, main scorer. He just makes that team run. And Joel kind of doesn't bring on all nights. And while he's a great defender, he's a dominant force down low. And it's also hard for him to be as efficient and productive with Ben Simmons going down in the lane all the time. but they make it work anyway. And he's also had load management issues. Not load management issues. He just has injuries. I don't even reference load management because we're gonna get into my favorite guy in a second. If Kawhi played all the games, I would definitely have him on first team over Anthony Davis. But Kawhi does miss games, and I don't fault him for that at all. He misses games because he has a legitimate injury and he needs rest because he can't play back-to-backs. And it's what you get. I mean, he's a star. He deserves to play how he sees fit to bring it up whenever he plays. So I'm not going to fault him for that. But the Clippers are a top 5 offensive and defensive team. They're tied. The only other 2 teams are the Lakers and the Celtics who are doing that. And he's just brings so much to the team with his scoring and his defense and his playmaking. Actually, is around 5 assists a game, which is probably the most lacking thing of his repertoire throughout his career. But he's actually bringing it pretty well, especially with Paul George being out for a good amount of games. Now with the third team, this is where we start getting into who got snubbed, who didn't get snubbed. But this is who I thought. So we're going to Chris Paul for point guard. No one thought the Thunder would be where they are. They're at 40 games. I think they're at the 5th seed right now. I mean, they look pretty good in the first scrimmage. And for all we know, they could climb up to 3 or they can drop to 7. We don't know. But it's largely because of Chris Paul and one of my favorite players, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But Chris Paul just is the leader, is the distributor of that team, brings defense, brings that mentality, and he leads the NBA in clutch scoring. And I have to give him props where it's due. All right, so for our second guard, we are going to be going Russell Westbrook. I've been critical of Westbrook in the past. But in this team where they traded Capella during the season, and now they're able to legitimately go 5 out, and he can just go down the lane in half court. Like, he could always go to the basket in the full court setting transition, but now there's no one in the paint, so he can do that even in half court situations. He can just go ISO and just blow past the defenders at all times. And his mid-range game is pretty good. I don't have his exact numbers, but it's a part of his game, especially now. He has stopped shooting threes. He was shooting around 5. No, he's shooting around 5 to 7, somewhere in that range, while Capella was still on the team. But now he's shooting like 2 and below, averaging ever since around the All-Star break or whenever he was traded. And he's just super efficient in that way. And at our small forward, we're going Jason Tatum. Now, Jason Tatum, I think there's a kind of a narrative around him of he came on really strong within the past few months. And I don't know how much he's been showing throughout the whole year. But they lost Kyrie Irving, and we don't know exactly how good this team could have been if Kyrie was a different mental state. They just didn't mesh. And Jason Tatum wasn't allowed to flourish just because of how Kyrie played. I mean, Kyrie's an amazing player, but I think Jason flourishing, being the best player, is what they needed. And at our 4, we're going Pascal Siakam, last year's most improved player. They won the championship, but then they lost Kawhi, and the Toronto has been dealing with so many injuries, but yet they're still second in the East. And he has, even after winning Most Improved, he improved again, another big leap in his scoring. I mean, he could be another candidate for Most Improved this year, but I would never be a person that would say someone should win it back-to-back, even if they would have to make a giant leap. And while he did make a good leap of about 17 points a game to 23 points a game, I'm not going to give him that nod over some other players that are just as deserving. All right, now on to our center position. We're going Bam. We are going Bam. He's been in the league for, I think this is his 4th year, and he's definitely improved a lot. Miami Heat's a legitimate second player. He's a part of a duo on that team with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo on a team that was probably people thought were gonna be in the playoffs, maybe a seed, but they are firmly in the playoffs and are a dark horse because of their defense and their shooting. I mean, they play a zone defense a lot, which you don't see a lot. I mean, you do see a lot, but I mean, I think they definitely hone in on that zone defense, and they have shooters that can get hot. So you never know what happens, and they have two defenders, Jimmy and Bam, who just bring it every night. And now the notable snubs we made on this list, the biggest one I was dealing with was Middleton. It was a hard one because I think he does deserve recognition because the Bucks are number one, are like the top team in the league right now. And Giannis has a perfect team built around him for what he can do, shooters and defenders. And Middleton is as efficient as they go shooting-wise. But I think a lot of these other guys just have a lot more star power to actually carry teams and not so much as rely on everyone around them, because I think Bucks have an incredible cast of players, as do the Clippers, as do the Celtics, as do the Lakers. But I have trouble giving Middleton that nod over some other players. Bradley Beal, in the bubble, ninth seed, probably not going to be able to make the playoffs because they would have to go on an insane tear, but he's averaging over 30 points a game on a team with very little talent. I love some of their players like Bertans and Hachimura, but let's be real, this team is not that good, and Bradley Beal is putting up insane numbers. Mitchell. Now, Mitchell is a curious case because I think he's a great player. He's a good scorer. He's a good defender. Not so much. He's an okay 3-point shooter. Relies a lot on the mid range, and he's the primary scorer. Him and Bogdanovich, who is now injured and out for the season for the Jazz, but he carries their offense because it's a pretty slow offense, and they rely a lot on defense and Gobert and Ingles and Conley, who is supposed to be their other big name, but he just hasn't panned out. We got Ingram. Now Ingram, I think he just deserves a shout out, but I'm not really sweating over not putting him on this list because the other players above him, legitimate cases for why they're better. They're leading their teams just as much, and they have better records. And Ingram's young though; he's gonna be a force. Then we have Ben Simmons, who is one of the best defenders in the league and he's on the 76ers, who kind of underachieved because they could be a lot better. But I mean, for a team that's underachieving, it's not a great team. They have talent, but they're not actually built out well for each other. And Sabonis deserves a shout out. Indiana, they're 5th seed right now in the East. No one really gives them that much like credit for being a top team just because they don't really have the star power with Oladipo out, and they played really well as a team, and they just have a lot of quality players like Miles Turner, Malcolm Brogdon, Jeremy Lamb, who's out, and TJ Warren. They have a lot of solid players that any other team would want, but Sabonis, just for what he does, being a scorer and a rebounder, not so much a 3-point shooter, not a great defender, especially at today's 4 position where besides Anthony Davis, who can actually shoot threes, and Sabonis, I'm sure, will have that range eventually, but I'm not going to put him on this list for now.